I will start the thing. Can you say?
Hello.
Okay, I think everything is working. So today we do have Daniel Peacock on live stream and everything. The
Hello.
the camera is not working because he is streaming from iPad, so there is like no face cam, and I forgot to upload the picture I was talking about like 5 minutes ago. So there is like a Skype logo, but that's all. So yeah, everybody, hello, Daniel Peacock, and if you could just tell a bit about yourself, and then in the background there will be presentation of your artworks that I downloaded from your ArtStation and everything. So yeah, hello. Happy to have you here.
Hello. Oh, honestly, where to begin? Where to begin? Um, I I'm from the UK. I paint scary things. Um, uh, that's. I think that pretty much sums up my entire character. That's everything. That's all you need to know.
Okay.
We can end the interview right there. That's it. That's
Yeah,
all I
yeah,
got.
yeah. So this is the end. So goodbye. Okay. So basically, what is your story of art? Like how you started with art and whatnot and everything.
So I've been doing it sort of on and off pretty much my whole life. I think I started when I was 4. I had one of those Magna Doodle things. I don't know if anyone remembers what they are, but it was like, I guess there was like magnetic shavings or something under like a plastic screen, and you had like a little pen with a magnetic tip,
Hmm.
and you would just kind of draw on it, and yeah, like it would show up on the screen, and then you could kind of wipe it clean again with one of
I
those little
do remember those things, but I
slidey
have no
things.
idea how they were called.
We called them Magna Doodles. I had one of those, and that was I think that was the first thing I used.
Hmm.
And yeah, I remember I used to draw a lot of. For some reason, I was really fixated with drawing like Power Rangers, but with their helmets kind of like half formed. You know how
Hmm.
like in the TV show they would kind of like wrap around from the back of their heads, like the different components of the helmet would sort of click into place. I don't know, I was just fascinated with like the I guess the mechanical aspect of that. So I would always draw that. But I didn't really start taking art super seriously. I wouldn't say until I guess maybe about
I will only
6
interrupt you
years
for
ago.
like 10 seconds. I switched
Oh,
to the scene so you can start drawing and continue talking. And yeah.
yeah. I think it was about 6 years ago, I guess, that I started taking it pretty seriously. Maybe 7. Um, and it was just from certain artists that I'd seen on CG Hub at the time. I really liked their
Mhm.
style, and I kind of figured I would just
And how old are you? How old were you when you started? Like
how old
taking
was
this
I?
seriously.
So I would have been 20 at
Ah,
the time. I
so
mean, I had been doing a little bit of digital painting leading up to that point.
huh?
Um, in my university course, it was a game design course. We did do a little bit of concept art and a little bit of like texture painting
Mhm.
for like 3D models and stuff. So that's kind of how I got a handle on digital painting. Um, but it wasn't. I really sort of knuckled down in the third year. I pretty much just blew off the coursework um, for my game design course, and just I kind of figured at that point that I wasn't particularly interested in building 3D assets or anything
Mhm.
like that. I just wanted to get really good at painting, um, and so I kind of just knuckled down for about a year, and yeah, just really tried to push it as hard as I could.
Yeah, just like 2 questions. Are you drawing right now or you?
Drawing right now.
Yeah.
Does it? Can you see the screen?
Yeah, I can see the screen, but I'm not sure if something is happening on the screen.
Oh, I'm drawing very, very slowly. It's a snail's pace. Oh no,
Ah,
let me.
yeah, we need to check it. Oh, okay, now something happened. Okay. Yeah, it does work. So basically, if my math is correct, you are 27 right now.
I am 27.
So
The
it
math checks
means
out.
so it means you were born in 94 or 93.
Yep.
93 or 94.
It was the first one, 93.
Okay. Oh, so okay. So because I was kind of stressed about
But
that you
good,
are like
yeah.
that you are 94 and that you are the same age as I am because I am from 94, and
Oh
I
yeah.
was like I was envious about your so I have a year
Oh,
here.
thanks.
Okay.
Um,
So basically with the art, because like I guess this will be like the main topic because an art everything from the name. What basically caused you to like take interest in art? Was this like something in particular, or was this like an accident? Like what basically kept you going? What kept you like, trying to get better at it? What was your goal at the beginning? What was
so
like your general idea about it?
I think the biggest catalyst to me, like really kind of knuckling down with it, was um, going through uh, like a lot of there were a lot of concept artists that I was really into, but I was a little bit, I guess, intimidated by their skill because they were just leagues ahead of me, and I couldn't really fathom how you ever got to that level. But I kind of made a habit of digging up their old like conceptart.org sketchbook threads,
Hmm.
and there were certain artists who I really liked, and I would just go right back to like page one, the very first uh, like sketchbook page that they'd done
Hmm.
on conceptart.org, and just to see their kind of their beginnings um, was very encouraging to me because I kind of people like Max Verheyen, who's obviously a pretty big inspiration for me.
Hmm.
Um, I really I love his style, but it was kind of intimidating when I first saw like how he painted. I kind of thought like I have no idea how anyone reaches that level. Is it just like an ingrained talent? Um, and certainly is a man with a lot of talent, but uh, yeah, just going back and kind of seeing his somewhat more, I guess, humble beginnings. That really kind of lit a fire under my ass because I thought like, I can if I
I
can
guess
just
I
sort
will
of
have to
follow.
search for like this topic because Berehin was for like, as far as I remember, he was my favorite art like all of the time. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
he's great.
that's right. And the first page of any type of a sketchbook, this is because usually there's like a pile of shit and you can feel better after like watching all of this
Yeah.
stuff.
But
So
you don't know that until you see it. It's always kind of suspect in your head, like,
mhm.
well, maybe he was human at one point, but also maybe they just like made him in a lab in a test tube, and he just kind of came out fully formed, and he's
With
always
the
been
things
painting
that
like
he
this.
is painting, I would believe he is from the
Yeah,
lab
yeah,
that they
yeah,
produced him. Same
yeah,
from for Oleg Vdovenko because I guess he is also an inspiration for you, or
yeah,
not.
yeah, for sure. But it's kind of one of the nice things, I guess, about painting in the sort of the digital age, I guess, or just being a digital painter
Hmm.
generally, is that people who are sort of up and coming, who are learning how to paint, they can go back through um, the sort of the, I guess, what do you call it? Um, the timeline, I guess, of their favorite artists and go back to like 5 years ago, 10 years ago,
Yeah, but
whatever, whenever they
many
started.
artists kind of like remove their old artwork from many pages. I guess like the
Some do.
easiest way is to search for like their DeviantArt because pretty much nobody cares about DeviantArt anymore,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they
yeah.
usually like leave the old stuff in there, but also on the
No, I still
forum.
I still have my art station up. That's got some rusty old images in there.
But I guess even
Um,
like your old artworks are still holding pretty.
I don't know. I mean, it sort of depends
I like what you mean
the,
by pretty
with
good
the
and what.
individual
Yeah.
perception, I guess. Uh, but it's hard for anyone to really get a clear sense of what their
Mhm.
skill level is. Um,
It's
I don't know.
highly, I would say, subjective type of a thing because some of like the top tier artists will, for example, call you like a beginner, and some of like lower, like the starter artists will like tell you are a god already, that you have nothing to learn anymore. But for you, when you started like painting 7 years ago, so basically this is like a pretty huge progress, I would say, to do in like a 7 years. So you previously had any experience in drawing, like you went into some sort of an art school or.
Yeah. No, I definitely. It wasn't like I started from scratch seven
Hmm?
years ago. It's just I went from, I guess, being a very lazy kind of complacent almost hobbyist artist where I would
Hmm.
sort of, when I had an idea, I would kind of sketch it out or paint it out, but never with any like real commitment. And I would abandon a lot of paintings as well. I would kind of just, I would ride the wave of inspiration, and then once things started getting kind of frustrating, I would just sort of let the painting fizzle out.
Hmm.
Um, 7 years ago, I guess, was the point where I sort of turned things around, at least in regards to my own commitment. But it certainly wasn't like when I began painting.
Hmm. Nice. And for the things that you were doing, when did you get like your first like serious commission that kind of ensured you that you are going to the right direction? Or what was the like the breaking point for you when you felt like, okay, this is it, I'm like, committing to this for the most likely next like 10 years?
I mean, to be honest, there was never really like a clear moment after starting to do paid work where I thought like, this is it, I've made it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess like, what is it, that imposter syndrome thing? I always kind of felt like I was pulling the wool over people's eyes. Um, I started out doing just a lot of trading card stuff for not very much money. Um, and even that was quite intimidating because there were a lot of other people who work for the same companies who just they were able to do things that I couldn't even I just couldn't wrap my head around.
Uh,
But it was very much like kind of a slow gradient from starting out to feeling like a professional. I couldn't say there was ever like kind of like a switch that got flipped. It was just kind of, okay, finally I'm starting to do a couple little bits here and there for various
uh,
people, and then that kind of eventually graduated into me working for Atom Hawk, which even then I think I've just had uh, sort of vague feelings of inferiority with pretty much every job I've worked.
mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know if there was ever like a really. I guess to think about it now, I would consider myself a professional, but I can't really figure out like
Like
at what point
why?
I started to consider
Uh,
myself that way.
okay.
Yeah,
So for you, because Atom Hawk is where? It's in UK?
it's in the UK and it's in Vancouver.
And now you moved to Vancouver, right?
Yes, yeah,
So,
I transferred to Vancouver to work at the Vancouver
so I
studio.
I
That's
guess
more.
I will start with a question like, how would you say like is alive, or what are the opportunities for an artist in UK? Like, is Canada better? Is UK better? Is it like comparable? Like, what's your take on
I
it?
I'm not really sure which one is better. It kind of depends, I guess, on what you want to go into specifically. If you just want to do like illustration, if you want to do trading card stuff, then
Mm-hmm.
you can pretty much live anywhere because all of those companies, or at least all of the ones I've worked for, um, just hire artists overseas. So yeah, wherever you live right now, if you want to get into trading card illustration, you can just do it from anywhere. If you want to work in like an outsourcing studio, Canada's pretty good right now. I mean, we've got Atom Hawk, there's Noir, there's Volta,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's a few others scattered around, but um, yeah, it really comes down to kind of personal preference, like what you're trying to do specifically.
You basically moved to Vancouver because job reasons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
I went freelance recently, so uh, now I'm here just because the mountains look cool.
Thanks. And for the things that you are doing, because by looking at your art station, I could tell that you are mostly an illustrator. But I guess if you like work, or you still do work for Atom Hawk, or no, you just went freelance.
No, I'm just yeah, I don't work for Atom
Okay,
anymore.
so if
Um,
you could say like what was your main type of thing that you were doing? It was illustration, concept, design, characters. I guess characters. environments? What is like your preference, like field?
I think generally illustration is my preference. When it comes to like just doing personal stuff, I'm finding myself leaning more into kind of painting scenes. I guess I'd call them just like little kind of creepy scenes with some sort of unpleasant thing going on. So I guess yeah, I'm kind of moving away, at least in terms of my personal art. I'm moving away from concept art.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I guess I would say that's my preference.
And for the creepy stuff, because this is like the thing usually, like I have like 3 artists where I go to when I need to make something creepy. Basically, it's you, like Verohin and Chuvabak. Basically, like this is always like my copy and paste to the Photoshop, and just trying to see, okay, how to make things creepy and go just find those
Right,
three.
right.
So when this creepy thing started and why started? Because one of the yeah, let's
Oh
start with
man,
it.
I forever. It's always. I remember I used to get told off by my mum for drawing dudes with like barbed wire wrapped around their heads in math books and stuff. Like I don't really know where it started, but I remember I was always kind of fascinated by I think just horror generally as a kid.
Uh-huh.
There was I remember my mum used to have like a big shelf full of like like tapes, like what did you call them? Like um, you know, like video
VHS, those
when you use
videos.
yeah VHS.
Uh
That's that. I was thinking VCR, but I knew it wasn't that.
huh.
Um, and they would just they would have like a little sticker on them saying like Jaws or Alien or like Jurassic Park,
Hmm.
and there was always like they were almost like a status symbol or something because I those were the ones on the top shelf that I couldn't watch, and they were kind of I don't know, it always kind of indicated to me like this is what grown-ups watch. Like grown-ups get to watch the cool,
Yeah,
creepy, kind of fucked up stuff.
it's
And
unavailable for you, so it must be cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was very tantalizing, just even from a young age. And I think there were also like there were just weird moments I remember. I don't know if these had much of an influence on me or not, but yeah, there were things that I remember seeing just on TV when I was a kid that really shook me to my core. Just like and like there was this one cartoon I remember seeing because my mum she used to just have the TV running pretty much all day just to have some background noise.
Hmm?
And back in the day there were like 5 channels, and you wouldn't really be able to. So it was kind of limited what you could watch. So you would just kind of leave the TV on, and whatever was playing is what was playing. Um, and I remember like walking into the lounge one day, and there was like this weird kind of stop motion animation on the TV, and it was some sort of show that I'd caught like halfway through, somewhere in the middle, and there were these 3 kind of stop motion, very ugly looking characters, just really not pleasantly designed. They were very like kind of haggard and like they had big noses and kind of sunken eyes with uh like really pallid skin, and they were kind of standing on like a pile of gold, and just out of nowhere, and this must have been pretty early as well. It must have been like maybe 4 p.m., 3 p.m., something in the day. But like the two of the stop motion characters started stabbing uh like the skinny one, I guess, of the group. And I remember just
Okay.
seeing like the kind of the stop motion blood coming out, and then like one of them sticks a knife in his stomach, and like the spleen falls out. And I must have been like maybe 4 years old when I saw this. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, what is that?
And then you were like,
Um,
okay, I'm doing this for the living.
it was just it literally. I remember it stayed with me for years because I always it got to the point where like I kind of wasn't sure if it was a real thing
Huh?
or just something I'd kind of dreamt up. And then I actually found the episode like decades later on YouTube. It's called Canterbury Tales, The Pardoner's Tale, and it's like this little stop motion, I guess, TV series they put on
The
in the
Partner's
UK.
Tale. right?
The Pardon's Tale, yeah. And just it was such a grotesque scene, but it's funny as well because like over the years, my memory of it got exaggerated to the point where I remember before I like rewatched
Hmm?
the actual episode, like years later, and my kind of memory of it went back to kind of a realistic base level. Like
Hmm?
the years leading up to that, it just got more and more exaggerated in my head, and like the way I was remembering it was like I don't know, like just guts exploding all over the
Yeah,
place.
like each time
It
you
was
like added this small something to it, and it started like collecting,
yeah, the memory
finding,
just
yeah,
warped into
building up.
something
Yeah.
ridiculous. But I don't know why I brought that up. I think the reason is like yeah, I really couldn't pinpoint why I got into creepy stuff, but I will say
Hmm?
one thing I do very much like uh, when it comes to my own painting is I like to get strong reactions out of people. Um, I'm really not interested in.
Definitely do. I am
Well, that's good.
entirely sure,
That's
yeah, that you do, because there is like one of these paintings where there is this, like, I guess a girl. I mean, the girl in the bed is obviously the girl, but this thing in the corner of a room in the shadow. And I remember when you
right.
posted it, and I was like, "What the fuck is like where what
Excellent.
he has seen in his life that he is doing stuff like." And yeah, and also this is kind of like one of the things that I wanted to ask about your artworks, because a lot of the artists, like myself included, I really like to kind of keep everything, let's say, intact without many distortions, kind of, let's say, to make it look like it's from real life. So the face needs to look like a face, the hand needs to look like a hand, and everything. And you seem
Right.
to basically really play with the shapes and anatomy and everything, like with distorting everything like to the limits. Uh, is there a reason for you? I guess like shocking like the viewer is one of the reasons, but um,
Well,
how
that
do you
kind of
approach this thing?
I think that kind of exaggeration of shapes thing I definitely learned from following Max. Um, I've sort of tried to develop a little bit more of my own style in the recent years, but it's I think the way I think about it is if I can take like kind of basic concepts of how to make something look scary, so like um, kind of a predatory grin
Hmm?
or kind of yeah, it's kind of an expression of hunger or something like that. Like how much can I push that and just like exaggerate it, like how much more severe can I make that if I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing the shapes? Um, and yeah, like with all the kind of the tendons and the weird
And
ripped
have
sinewy
you
skin and stuff.
have you
That's
ever
all.
been
That's all
like
kind of part of it.
studying anatomy and everything like really seriously? Like, could you say that if someone like told you to draw like like maybe not a perfect but a really accurate drawing, anatomical drawing of a human, like could you do it, or you just like
I,
basically come up with
I
all
would
the
make a lot of
shapes?
mistakes for sure. I did do. I followed Scott Eaton's anatomy course
Hmm?
uh, while I was still in university, and that is a very good course if you want to learn. Um, like it's just it's very thorough in how it goes into anatomy and like all the different groups of muscles in various parts of the body. Unfortunately, I've forgotten a sizable chunk of that.
Hmm?
I kind of remember like the general shapes and I remember some of the names of the muscles, but a lot of the anatomy I do is kind of interpretive. The point is like I'm just sort of trying to follow the the kind of the general flow of human anatomy, and I can kind of I'll give myself like a good amount of wiggle room
Hmm.
when it comes to like the actual specifics of certain things.
Because always the
Um,
impression that I had when I was like looking at your artworks on the process, like small gifs that you are posting and everything, that basically there is nothing that you do not know about anatomy. At least this is the impression that I'm getting when I'm looking at this stuff, because you are able to like distort it so heavily, but still maintain the believability of it. It kind of makes it like look that you know exactly you are doing, that you are like no guessing, or that basically you have like everything like remembered perfectly.
Well, I'm glad I give that impression. I feel like there are a lot of people who could poke some pretty serious holes in some of the anatomy that I draw, but I do think, um, yeah, like once you sort of get used to the kind of the general groupings of
Mhm.
muscles, um, it just makes things a lot simpler, and you can kind of you can reinterpret things and still make them look convincing. So like with the forearm, you have the ridge muscles that sort of, I guess, wrap around from your elbow and then sort of come into your wrist,
Mhm.
and then you have the extensor muscles that go down, just kind of straight down towards your fingers, I suppose. Um, they sort of, I think they get stopped at your wrist, and then there's like a belt of tendon or something, and then past that they sort of become the tendons in the back of your hand. Anyway, like once you kind of understand like the broad groups, you can kind of, yeah, you can just play around with the shapes, and like
Mhm.
it doesn't really matter too much if things are 100%.
Because one
Uh,
of the conclusions that I kind of like came with after like watching your artwork is, since you are like distorting everything like so much, then it's kind of, as you said, someone could poke a hole in your anatomy, but I guess you kind of make it impossible because you change so much of the anatomy. It
yeah,
all looks like it is exactly how it's supposed to look like. So also
that's
the
the way to do
thing,
it.
yeah, also the thing
Smooth
is
waters
that you are
over and
doing
over
is
for what
like,
you were trying to do.
but also the thing is with your paintings and everything, because for example, now I'm looking at this guy that is sitting on the toilet, and the second one has like a mouse in his mouth.
Yeah.
Um, you, I would say, have really amazing ability to create like a really interesting tonal changes in the colors, and you play a lot with the texture in and everything. And I guess this is one of the things that really makes the whole anatomy really believable. Look, and is there like a thing that you just do, or is it the thing that you like actively learned to do, or how did you approach it?
Um, well, actually, a lot of it comes from it's almost cheating in a way, a little bit. I think one thing I do use, like a lot of the reasons why some of the characters I paint are kind of sinewy, and have like, yeah, just like really really kind of overt anatomy, I guess, like all the muscles are kind of bulging
Mm-hmm.
out and like there's veins and tendons and all of that, is because it actually it's kind of makes uh, the lighting easier to figure out, because you're essentially like covering the body in landmarks that you can kind of use to then get a
Mm-hmm.
sense of like the direction of the lighting. So I can kind of say like, okay, so there's these shadows that are forming on this side of the neck. So the light is kind of coming from sort of above and then slightly to the right and then kind of angled in this direction. Like the more of that you do, the easier it is to kind of yeah, get a sense for the direction of the lighting. It's a very unsubtle tactic, and I will say, like, anytime I try and paint something kind of smooth, I really struggle. Um,
Because also this is one of the things that I noticed a lot of like creepy, let's say, guys do. They tend to like paint like someone took a photo with a flash or something like this.
oh yeah, that's a classic tactic.
Yeah, and I would say it's extremely simple. Like to some degree, I guess it's like even a cheating, because I could say painting something is a bit easier in this setup because it's really like easy to, maybe not easy, but it's really kind of, let's say it's easy because I like a better word, to
No, it's definitely,
understand
yeah,
how
it
the
definitely is easier.
shadows will work, but also it's this extremely effective. Like it just fits perfectly to those type of things.
Yeah.
So, do you like, as you said, you struggle with something that is basically you have to paint something?
Yeah, well, I definitely do. I mean, there's a reason why I tend not to paint a lot of beautiful women in my paintings, just because it's much more of a challenge to get kind of the subtleties.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, like, when it comes to the lighting setup, usually it is uh, a choice for the mood, just to kind of really set the specific tone that you're trying to set. Um, it's like, for sure, it does simplify a lot of things, that kind of flash lighting, but there are some interesting kind of nuances to it as well that are interesting, like the way it sort of highlights certain parts of, especially like human skin. Like, one thing you'll kind of
Mm-hmm.
notice if you look at a lot of those flash photos is that, um, a lot of times, like, usually, when skin's in shadow, it has a slightly kind of, sort of orangey reddish tint, just because of the
Mm-hmm.
subsurface scattering. Um, I one thing that seems to happen a lot with that flash photo type of lighting is, you get sort of, I think it's like the peach fuzz on the side of people's faces and on the skin and stuff, that it actually kind of, it desaturates parts of the body as the light falls off. So
Mm-hmm.
there are like little things you can notice, um, that are kind of interesting. But there's nuances in every kind of lighting setup. Like,
That's right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Also, there's a question from Giovanni Tim. There is something you wouldn't paint, a particular subject or something that you feel like it's much. Too much is in the quotes.
Um, Probably not. I think, no. If it's, I would say this, like, if it's not too much for me, then I wouldn't assume that it's too much for someone else. I think it's almost like a little bit kind of patronizing to your audience to say, like, oh, I have this idea that I think would be cool, but I don't know if people are ready for it.
You
You know,
don't want to unleash your full potential because you are scared for the audience.
yeah, yeah, but it's also like you're kind of, I feel like you're overestimating your own potential in that sense, like, to kind of shock or surprise people. And
Uh,
especially, like, in this day and age, in this day and age, uh, I would say, like, you have such an ability to kind of really, like, tailor your audience to the sort of thing that you specifically like to paint. Um, you can really fall into a niche and kind of trust that there will be people who gravitate to your particular thing, which was not so much the case. I wouldn't have thought, at least, back in kind of the 18th century or whatever, when everyone was painting, uh, you know,
yeah, the
like
same stuff basically.
biblical things, and, um, so yeah, no, there really isn't anything that I would shy away from. Usually, I mean, to be fair, there definitely was a time where I was more hesitant to kind of explore my own ideas, but it wasn't. It usually wasn't because I thought they would be too shocking. I just, usually, I kind of figured, like, they just weren't very good. Like, they didn't make sense, or they were kind of just generally unappealing ideas that people wouldn't respond to. Um, and that, more and more, I'm just sort of trying, at least in my own personal work, to kind of lean into my own ideas and just kind of exaggerate them as much as I can. Um, yeah,
Because also with the things that you are doing, because earlier you said like you wouldn't shy from like certain things and everything, uh, um, but with the things that you are doing, I think you chose a really like a specific type of a creepiness that you want to achieve because it's not as obvious as some of the horrors are. So there's not a lot of gore and everything like the obvious type of things that are happening with the horror. But you went a little bit more with this like unsettling kinda non-pleasant but pleasant to look at distortions, everything.
right, right.
And for those things in particular, like how much I wanted to ask, are you using like real life like as I can see now, like you are painting some type of a child. with, I guess, maybe some sort of a disease. I don't know, because it looks kind of deformed. But how much are you actually using like the real life things in your paintings?
Sort of, I would say more now than I used to. I kind of, the way I used to paint, I would do like a set of studies, kind of like what I'm doing now, and
Mm.
then I would try to take what I learned from those studies and kind of commit it to memory by doing a painting uh, that was, I guess, kind of without reference. So I would just, I wouldn't really pull up much reference while I was painting, but I would kind of have this like backlog of information from like a little set of studies that I'd done prior to it that would inform what I was doing. Um, and it was kind of, I think the point of doing that exercise was that I really did want to commit uh, certain principles to memory and certain like observations about lighting and color and texture and all of that. And I kind of wanted to steer clear
Mm.
from just like I didn't want to rely so heavily on reference that I never really kind of internalized anything, you know.
Mm.
Um, but that being said, I do use reference a lot more frequently nowadays. Um, Mainly because I just don't do as many studies as I should.
And this is also like the next thing that I wanted to ask about the studies, because there are some artists that basically do not do studies. They just paint things like just like use references while they are painting. So they are kind of like doing a study while doing an illustration. For you, it was the same. Like you usually make studies, like you used to make study then an artwork, or usually you were like producing just artworks.
Um, say again. Sorry, what's the question?
Like, I kind of don't know how to ask it, but you would
So
say, like, let's say it's simply like the ratio of studies to finished artworks in your case is more like 1000 studies, 10 finished artworks, or more like 10 studies, 100 artwork.
oh, I think the ratio has definitely flipped in recent years. But when I was practicing, I would do sort of maybe 4 or 5 studies
Mm.
before painting. So yeah, I guess that was the ratio. It would be like 5 studies to one painting. Maybe like 3 studies. That's probably close to the truth.
Because why I'm asking, because you have like a really distinctive style. You can easily say that something was like painted by you if you like if I stumble upon any type of an artwork that you posted somewhere or someone reposts, and it's just, if it's a new artwork, I can really easily say that it is done by you. And
Well, that's good to hear.
why I am asking is because usually when I like see an artwork that I can immediately say who painted it, it comes from an artist that was mostly like doing paintings, but was not studying that much. Like they were doing their own thing so many times over and over again that they really quickly developed this really like characteristic style to it. So this is was like why I was asking. And for the things also that you are painting and you are not painting, because as you said, like for example, drawing like beautiful females and everything is like out of your comfort zone. What
Yeah.
are the other things that you would say are completely out of your comfort?
Um, well, I mean, it's funny because like when you frame things as inside or outside of your comfort zone,
Mm.
it kind of, you then have to ask like, is it something that you want to paint, but you're just afraid because you don't know if you have the competence, or is it something that you're avoiding painting because you're just generally not interested in that subject? Uh, I would say certainly, yeah. Like I think painting like female figures and things like that are things I do want to incorporate more into my artwork, and I do want to sort of develop a better understanding for those sort of subtleties. Um, in terms of, I mean, there's a lot of things that I just don't paint because I really have no interest. But I think comfort zone wise, things that I struggle with, composition is a huge one. And part of the reason why I'm doing more, I guess, scene-based illustration is because I am kind of trying to knuckle down on the principles of composition, and
Mhm.
also just kind of trying to develop like a good intuitive sense for it, because I'm really not very technically minded, and I have a hard time, uh, yeah, just understanding things on that sort of level.
So basically, you just go more with a feel instead of like planning and everything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know some of the basic principles, but generally, I try to eyeball it, and I do deliberately stretch a couple of compositional rules, which I'm still not entirely sure if I even have the right to be stretching rules at this stage, considering my understanding is pretty rudimentary. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, things like the the last sort of big painting I posted up, like the two figures on the couch. Like there's that one guy sort of up in the corner, and he's like really squished into
Mhm.
the top left of the image, which from a compositional standpoint is not a great thing to do, because it kind of it pulls the viewer's eye
I
out
would
of the
say this is
painting.
a smart thing to do actually, because I was looking at this piece today because I use it like a waiting screen. It was like the perfect waiting screen at the moment that I had. But I personally thought that this is a really smart thing to do, and it's kind of weird for me now to hear that it's kind of not intentional in it.
It definitely was intentional, but it was just, I mean, there was a lot of second guessing.
Mhm.
I'm glad it worked. I'm happy that it was well. Do you think it was a good idea? But it was just, the idea essentially was like, I want there to be as much tension with this figure as possible, and I know that it kind of just inherently creates tension to have something like right up against the edge of the canvas. And also, obviously, I kind of wanted him to be very much like the kind of the third or fourth read. In regards to the composition, I wanted people to kind of notice the figures first, and kind of uh, get a sense for that area of the image, and then hopefully sort of catch the figure's hand, and then follow that up to his head, and
If I
so that
have
he
to be
would sort of be
honest,
like the final conclusion, the last thing that people look at.
like I saw this painting many times, like really many times, and I even posted it in Photoshop and everything just to like prepare everything. And only now, when you said about the face, like when we started talking about this piece, only now I previously
Oh,
it was
really? No way.
completely hidden. Like my
Huh.
brain was like completely. And one of the things also that I think is great because with the style that you are working in, with all the creepy stuff, you have much more room and space for kinda like, let's say, making mistakes with compositions and everything. Because if the theme is creepy, you can kind of say the composition also can be creepy and a little bit odd, and you can really, let's say, easily justify weird decisions with the things that you are
Yeah, yeah,
doing
for sure.
painting.
But
Because,
I
for
don't know if
example,
that's necessarily a good thing. I feel like you could very much use that just to kind of excuse, well,
yeah,
like you
this is a
say.
good excuse, but also it works really well, I would say. It can be a good excuse, but excuse, yeah, this is. Uh, yeah, also there is a question about your favorite artist right now. I guess one will be Verehin, and
Oh, Verhin's always, he's definitely one at the top of the list. Yeah, I love Chuvak, obviously, Oleg.
mhm.
Um, there's actually, I really like a lot of Russian artists, and I'm already forgetting their names. Oh, what's that one guy called? Um, the problem with Russian artists is I can never really pronounce their names properly.
Yeah, because they
Uh,
have like this. So
oh, no, let me. I'm gonna pull up his name quickly.
yeah, no
Yeah.
problem.
Oh, it's Stepan Alexiev. I don't know if you
Uh-huh.
know that guy.
I
He's
guess.
one of the fellas on ArtStation. I could be completely butchering his name, but uh,
I guess I know what you are talking about.
yeah, his composition is really cool. Um, It's very subtle. I think a lot of the lighting choices he uses are pretty interesting as well. But I also I'm sort of trying to make a point at the moment to look at more traditional artists. Phil Hale obviously is like a really big inspiration. Um, Especially like I think just in subject matter. Like if I remember you were asking earlier about like kind of exaggerating forms and where I get some inspiration from that, and he is definitely a big point of inspiration there. Just the way he kind of like stretches the human form and kind of like really pushes certain shapes. Yeah, that's definitely I find that very interesting.
Later, I will ask you to send all those guys like on the messenger or something, so I will include. And also, there's a next question: do you ever get days where you just don't feel like painting? If so, how do you deal with those type of days? Do you believe more in the motivation or in discipline when it comes to creating art daily?
I am very much about just self discipline. I think one actually, if you really want to know what it was that lit the fire under my ass when
Mm-hmm.
I really started taking things seriously for digital painting, one of the things was there's a book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, which I think I heard about it from the Joe Rogan podcast, but it's a very good book just for kind of learning how to self motivate. Um, I would say like when it comes to inspiration, I think a lot of artists, especially kind of beginners, uh, will kind of excuse themselves from painting as much as they perhaps should, you know, if they're trying to reach a certain goal, because, you know, they're not particularly inspired on any particular day. But the thing is, I've certainly found, at least with myself, that inspiration is something that you kind of, it comes through work. It doesn't come from just kind of sitting around and waiting for an idea to pop in. Like, just start doing something, like just draw like a human figure and then kind of play around with it and see if something comes. And usually, if you start doing that, things will come. Um, but to answer the question, like on the days where I don't feel like doing something, well, I mean, one thing's for sure, like once you become professional, whether or not you feel like painting is kind of neither here
Yeah,
nor there. You
you
have
you
to,
have to.
you have to get the things done that you've been hired for.
Uh-huh.
But even in like personal painting, you just treat it the same way. Treat it as if it's like a professional
For a
project.
client, right?
Yeah.
Also, there's this cool quote that you just like remind me of. Actually, it said Pablo Picasso said it, so it's like a serious stuff. But he said
Ooh, okay.
once, supposedly, that inspiration exists, but it has to find you working. And it's
Right.
a really nice quote, and I guess it's really nicely summarized. That
Yeah, that's a great quote. And I'm pretty. I wouldn't be surprised if that quote is in the War of Art.
I
Um,
guess I have seen it in some books already because I heard it many times
yeah.
previously. Nice.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think if you want to get good at painting, then how you feel on any particular day shouldn't factor in very
Hmm?
much. Like, just sit down. If you, the thing is, like, I would say outcome independence is kind of a good way to get motivated with painting. Certainly, like personal painting. Just set yourself, you know, a number of hours every day
Hmm?
that you can give to painting. You know, like let's say like you can let's say you can only squeeze in like 3 hours a day. Just make sure that you get those hours in every single day, and once you're out the other side, don't worry about the quality. Don't worry about uh, whether or not you learn as much as you could have. So long as you commit to those 3 hours and you really like you just focus in and you don't allow yourself to get distracted, um, just by virtue of the fact that you put in those hours every single day, you will improve. Um, yeah. I guess that's
And just for the numbers, because a lot of people actually care about the numbers, especially if someone is like just beginner, like a beginner. For you, if you could say how, let's just, it will be a really estimation. how many hours daily do you spend drawing, painting, and everything? Were you like grinding for 16 hours a day, or closer to like 4, 8?
When I started learning, it was
When you were not a professional, like when you were.
when I was not a professional.
Yeah.
So I'll say this: I was in a very privileged position at the time because I essentially I blew off a year of coursework at the end of my university degree, and I had like student loans that paid my rent, and I could buy food with. So I didn't have to work. All I had to do every day was just paint. And while I was doing that, I painted 9 hours a day, and that was for a year.
Nice. Well, this
And
how did it work?
so I broke it down into 3 hour chunks. Um, yeah, and I would just I'd get up, I'd have my first 3 hours, and then I'd have a break, and then another three, and then so on and so forth.
Also,
Yeah.
there are two more questions. I guess it's from Vlada, because Rawhide.
Ugh,
Ernie.
gross.
What do you think about fan art? This is the first one.
Well, I don't know. I'm not averse to it necessarily. I don't have any like strong feelings either way. I will say like fan art was pretty helpful to me, at least just in regards to getting a following on Twitter. I did that goofy little Grumbler painting, which got retweeted a bunch of times. I would say like if there's a particular character that you like, that you find yourself inspired by, then yeah, I don't see why. Yeah, I'm all for fan art.
And the second question is, do you care about the feedback from the audience, your followers?
Yeah, to a degree. I think
It sounded
it's
like a
almost
solid no.
no. I wouldn't say no. I definitely. I think it's almost impossible to not care to a degree what other people think of your art. Like as a painter, the whole point is to put your art out into the world and have it seen by other people, and hopefully have it. Yeah, like you want people to react to and hopefully be moved by the work that you produce. And so if that isn't happening, it's obviously you're going to care. Um, yeah, I would say like I don't really care about the specifics. I think like if people, it really hasn't happened that anyone's been like explicitly offended by anything that I've painted. Uh, at least not so far as I'm aware of. Like no one sent me any angry messages or anything. But even if that were the case, I don't think I would mind very much, because at the very least, people are certainly reacting to the stuff I'm painting, and that's really about as much as I'm interested in. So long as I can paint stuff that I like, that I feel good about, and other people are responding to it, that's yeah, that's
And
pretty
for
much
the
all I could
things
ask
also
for.
that you like to paint and that you care about, is there like what is your current goal? Is like to produce something, do something, create an art book, or like what do you aim for right now?
Uh, I don't know. I think I'm just gonna get. Um, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get incredibly rich on NFTs, and then I'm gonna uh, maybe I guess I'll fly to the moon. Maybe I'll build a little plantation up there. Not a plantation. That's just there's no good connotations with plantations. Uh, I have no idea.
So basically now you just
No,
want to
I do have
improve
some
and
ideas. Let me. But I generally I would like to say I want to put a lot more time into personal painting. I want to do a lot more illustration. I'm looking into print selling at the moment. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. I kind of the best moments, uh, times where I feel the best about my art, and the times where I feel like I'm really doing something that is kind of important, at least for myself, is when I'm doing personal work. Like those are the really good moments where I'm like getting right into the meat of like an illustration that I'm just doing for myself. So if I can get to the point where I can make just personal painting more financially viable, that's really the trajectory
Hmm.
I'm honing in on right now. Just trying to do more of that, and hopefully getting to the point where I can pick and choose client work and be a little bit more discerning about it.
Hmm. And for like choosing the art and like the clients and everything, would you say you prefer to work in studio or freelance?
Well, I do like working in studio because I like being around other artists, and that was for my own growth. It was very good to go through Atom Hawk because I was in close proximity with a lot of very, very skilled artists. They had all sorts of tips and tricks and skill sets that I didn't have, and just getting feedback from them and kind of being motivated by them was very useful for my development. Um, that being said, I don't really like the kind of outsourcing work uh, system, just where you don't really get to choose the sort of stuff you do. Um, you end up on a lot of pretty shitty projects, and I would say like at least in regards to being able to control the sort of work I take on, I prefer freelance, but I do miss being around other artists.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. And that's really. I wonder if I do
Good to
have
hear.
anything else asked to, because you really answer every question in depth. I guess this is the expression and everything. Also, how much time do you have left? Because we are getting closer to like 1 hour, and you said at the beginning that you only have like hour something.
Let me see. What is the time now? Ooh, 1:57. I probably have yeah, I have a few more minutes if there's a few more questions
Uh,
or topics, any little points of interest.
okay, so more will be like now. I would ask some uh, not private, more personal type of a thing is just for
Ooh,
anyone
hello.
like following you. Also a question. Okay, so I do not have to invent any. How do you choose which elements of a character, creature, or a drawing do you want to emphasize? That's a good one.
It really just comes down to kind of maximizing the effect of it. So, I, one thing I'm actually trying to sort of like, I guess, prune back my constant insistence to make every monster's head gigantic. Um, because I've been doing that for so many paintings now, but it is like I don't know what it is about big old giant heads, but there's something very scary about it to me. Uh, and I
There are
always feel like
unsettling.
it's unsettling. And again, that's another thing. I remember um, I think the first time I had this dream a while ago, years ago now. I was quite young, but I remember like I was in kind of I guess like a factory or some sort of like industrial looking facility that was completely abandoned, and it was all pitch black. But I guess I was kind of like, um, I guess I was like emanating some sort of light because I could kind of just about see the things that were immediately in front of me, and I could hear like this banging in the distance, and I was trying to follow the banging, and like bit by bit, I was kind of weaving my way through this weird facility, and the banging was getting louder, and eventually I sort of got to this point where there was a door in front of me, and I could hear that the banging was like right behind it, and it sounded like it was really heavy, and it sounded kind of moist, I guess. But I kind of I pushed my way through the door, and what it was there were like just all of these like big giant like car-sized heads, and they were all like they had these long necks that were kind of snaking up a staircase and just kind of disappearing, off into the distance. And they were all like it was like they were kind of trying to lift themselves up, like they were trying to lift themselves up off the ground, but they were too heavy. So they would get like a little bit off the ground and then just kind of give up and just slam back down.
You did a sketch of this, right?
I did. I did.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it right now. And
Yeah.
this is a really vivid description, I would say.
But I want to do that one again because I don't think the sketch quite nailed how weird it was. But anyway, just there was something about that, just like the size of these big old heads, really kind of yeah. I don't know. It stuck with me, and it always just seems to be the case. But it's also like I because I kind of I like portrait painting, and I kind of I like faces, and especially if I'm trying to I think a lot of the horror in my paintings comes from the face of the characters or the creatures or whatever. Like it's
Definitely.
all in their kind of expressions and their looks. So I kind of it's sort of a cheapish trick to like just exaggerate uh, the one area that I really want to focus on. Like I'll just make it inhumanly big and kind of make the environment around them a little bit smaller because I kind of want to deprioritize it.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say again, this is like maybe from the name, this is a cheap trick, but definitely it's not like a cheap execution because it's not like a simple making like a big nose, big eyes, something like that. I would say like the way you approach it is much more complex.
Someone actually messaged me a little while ago asking if I'd heard of sensory homunculus, of what a sensory homunculus is. I don't know. Do you know what a sensory homunculus is?
I don't know, but I can get what it from the name.
So
Oh,
actually,
okay,
I
I
did.
know this guy. Okay, I know. But
Right,
tell
right,
it
right.
anyway.
So yeah, I mean, I looked. I did actually look these up like a few years ago, and it's. I don't know how you would describe what they are, but I guess the idea is that like they're kind of depictions of people where the parts of the body that have the most kind of um,
Um,
like sensory
yeah,
like
things.
sensitivity, I guess, are like enlarged. So like it's all like the hierarchy of scale is based on like the sensitivity of a body part. So like uh yeah, like the eyes are really big because they're kind of a big point of like sensory input for people, and like the hands are really big because we do a lot with our hands, and like the big old dick, tiny legs, all of that thing. Um, yeah, it's
I'm
kind of
looking
like
at one of these at the moment on Google Images, and actually the dick part is a really small thing, I would say.
oh really? I remember
Yeah,
them being pretty hefty. I could be wrong. Maybe it's just my own.
I mean they are quite hefty, like if compared to the leg, but compared to the rest, they are quite small. But the thing is that they are definitely lying. The little toe is this is the most, I would say, delicate part of our body that has the most sensory things in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly one of them, but it is like just that kind of the aesthetic of those things, that kind of that weird like exaggeration of certain features, like the
Yeah.
big lips and the big eyes and all that. Like it's so creepy. Um, yeah, like I'm really, I don't know, I that yeah, that's definitely like another point of inspiration.
Yeah, this is. Hmm. It's really weird for me because like your artwork, I would say, is so like not typical in a sense that it's really hard to ask any questions about it. Like everything seemed to be kind of random, but on purpose, but random, but on purpose. So as I said previously, about like the more typical questions, like what they are your favorite games, movies, and everything, like the typical stuff. Just for
So I can quick fire those off.
yeah, just for the
Um,
guys to like, if someone wants to like know you a little bit better, like what should they know?
I'm sure like you could probably guess a lot of them. Silent Hill, obviously, the first four games are classics. I do like number four as well.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I, I I think more recent games I really liked Darkwood. Darkwood was a really good one. And it's actually kind of fascinating because I went through it and there's so much interesting lore in the game. And I was kind of hoping I could like dig a bit more into it in like just YouTube videos and stuff, but no one's really talking about it, which is surprising to me because it does seem like it is well received by most people. I would say that's like a really really good horror game. I would definitely recommend Darkwood.
I heard about it, but that's all pretty much.
I would say like probably one of the most interesting games I played recently was Pathologic 2, uh, which I I thought I was going to hate because I got it on PS4 and it's like one of the most poorly optimized games I've ever played. Like I
Mm.
lost count of the amount of times it crashed. Um, very very laggy, very grindy.
I mean,
But
the name of the game fits the way it works.
yeah. Do you know Pathologic 2?
No, it's the first time I ever see this type of a thing.
It's really really good. In spite of all of the scathing criticism I just gave it, it is a very very good game. Um, just like the characters are really interesting and kind of the world building. It's such a I don't even really know how much I can say about it without kind of spoiling the
Mm.
experience. But I would anyone who's into kind of I guess narratively rich games that are really really engrossing. I would say like Souls players would probably really like Pathologic 2 because it is kind of um, it's very obtuse and it's a little unfriendly to the beginner. In fact, I would say it's very unfriendly to beginner players, but that's
Mhm.
kind of the point of the game. Like you just kind of stumble through and you can never quite get a grip on anything completely. Uh, like there's a day night cycle and um, you have like a certain set of things that you have to do every day, but there's no way you could do all of them. Anyway, I I won't ramble on about that game, but it is a really
Mhm.
good one. So I would recommend that as well.
Yeah, I definitely will save this one. For the movies, I guess it will be everything that you had as VHS yourself.
I tend to like sort of weird horror movies, kind of like I'd say Lake Mungo is a good one. Possum was pretty cool.
Mhm.
I when I was a teenager, I went through like a big phase of like getting really into like slashes and like really gory films, and I think I've desensitized myself to that stuff now to the point where it really doesn't affect me very
Mhm.
much. And so I kind of now I just lean to more towards I guess kind of the weird horror movies. Hereditary was a really good one.
Which one?
Um, Hereditary.
Oh, this one.
That was the one with the girl who goes.
I do not know this one somehow.
That's a good one.
Save it. Okay, and for a little bit different side, your favorite animal. This is the
Favorite
question
animal?
nobody asks for.
Uh, God, wow. I've got to come up with something interesting there. The immediate thing was dog, but that's so pedestrian. Everyone likes dogs. Uh, say the
Creepy dog.
I don't know. Um, I don't know animals. Oh, that's just tragic. I wish I could come up with an interesting animal.
Yeah, so
Uh,
let's say a dog.
let's say dogs.
In
Fine.
here, you are not
I'll
creepy. Yeah, a success. We
defeated.
found like a
Completely
normal
defeated.
thing. Nice.
I completely
Uh,
ruined my image. My reputation is
I will
in the
edit.
toilet now.
I will edit this part later.
Okay, good.
Uh, and I guess the last question for me is there a project that you would like to work for at the moment or in the future?
Um,
Or like the IP or something like this?
no, not really. I think I don't know. That I think I would like to work on maybe a frictional games title. I think that'd be pretty fun. The guys who do like Amnesia.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, I'm usually not like I just there aren't any like big AAA titles that I would be really excited to get my hands on. Mainly, I'll say like one thing has certainly become clear to me in recent years is that I'm not a huge fan of like the concept art
Mhm.
process. I don't like yeah, just kind of the general pipeline. I kind of like to work in more of an exploratory way and to have a little bit of room for experimentation. And that's usually At least in my experience, when it comes to like concept art projects, there's a big limit on that.
There's also one
Yeah.
question, and the second one is mine. The first one is again from Rawhide. What was it like to create a unique character tribute collector for the MK11? I
Yeah,
guess
that's
this is some
definitely.
sort of an inside joke.
It was yeah, that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. It was a tricky one. That was definitely Vlad was actually a very good person to know on that project because I was pretty rusty when it came to character design when I started out.
Mhm.
And yeah, like that was it was definitely cool to kind of see him in game. It was a little bit bittersweet, I guess, because I think I was a little bit too I don't know. I was kind of resistant to the Mortal Kombat style a little bit when I was designing him, and I was like, oh, I'm going to make this guy look so weird. He's going to be so
Mhm.
uh, out of left field. No one's going to know what they're looking at when they see him in game. And obviously, that was not at all what NetherRealm wanted. They wanted like a playable character who was
Uh-huh.
at least conventional enough to kind of, you know,
That will be possible
to
to
be used
animate.
as a playable character and to kind of fit within the world. And so, like, they did kind of have to um, bring me back to earth a few times. And like the final design is like a little bit of an amalgamation of the design that I came up with and
Mhm.
someone in house who kind of like I guess reined in some of the stranger aspects.
Mhm.
Uh, but it was cool. It was very. To be honest, all of the characters that I designed for Mortal Kombat, that's by far the biggest project I've worked on where everything's been released and I've like seen things on the other side, like all of the characters that I designed kind of coming to life and animated. So yeah, that was very cool.
Nice. And have you heard about the game Ill?
Oh yeah, of course.
Have you tried to apply to it? Because I guess you will be like a better than perfect fit for Chuvabak for this project.
Uh, I mean, I've thought about it, but I feel like uh, as much as I don't know, maybe I would be a perfect fit, but also I kind of feel like there's nothing I could bring to the table that couldn't be brought either by Berihin or Oleg
I would
himself.
disagree, I guess, but
Maybe I don't know. I might well ask, but I feel like it's very much their baby at the moment, and I don't want to intrude.
I
But
guess they,
maybe that's completely illogical. Maybe I should ask. Maybe I should
yeah,
just
because as far as I know, they just registered in Canada their studio.
yeah.
So I guess maybe.
Maybe we'll have to see. I'll give them a poke.
Yeah, okay, so I guess I won't take more of your time because we are already a little bit over the time you said you have. And it was a huge pleasure to meet you in person and to have you in here to ask you all the questions and everything. And do you have anything else to add that would add to something?
No, I think yeah, my brain's pretty much rinsed out. But yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me on, dude. It was very fun sitting and chatting and getting the spotlight on me. I feel like I'm in a, a talent show in primary school.
Now you are using oozing or coolness. Oozing is the word.
Oozing coolness.
Yeah.
I'm
So now you have additional.
excellent. I've got
Nice.
that coolness surplus. I'm stuffing it in a big hole in a tree.
Yeah. So yeah, again, thanks for being here. Also, if anyone has any more questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I will redirect the questions later to Dan. And that will be all for today. And thanks for watching. So goodbye, everyone.
See you guys.